Hey guys, before we get started, I wanted you to click on the link below to get a free copy of the Nevada Edge Guide. This guide is packed full of information about the benefits of Nevada LLCs and the tax strategies, all about using Nevada entities. Full of information that'll benefit you and your personal life. Just click the link below. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wealthy and Wise. I'm your host, Court Christie, CEO and founder of NCH. Now tonight we're going to talk about what's in a name. Everything you need to know about picking the right business name. And I brought an expert here to talk about this. I have Shannon Hymas. Shannon is one of our senior consultants here at NCH, and every day she's talking to great people about how to pick the right business name for their business and really getting into their business ideas. So welcome, Shannon.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. So business names, I think about it, and I know the people you're talking to day in and day out are thinking about, the perfect name. What is the perfect name for their business? And they've been racking their brain and they talk to you. And, when somebody comes to you with a name, where do you go? How do you begin that process? How does it start?
Sometimes people have a name picked out and they've got their heart set on them. And sometimes they have no clue. And sometimes they pick names that are already taken, or are so general that they're probably taken somewhere else, or they're too specific and they wind up being like, you're gonna have to sign this whole long thing. So it can become very interesting, very stressful for some people. I like to make it easy. It's a name.
It's just a name.
It's just a name. And if you don't like it, that's okay, because you can always, you don't want to change the whole name of the LLC. That's a little bit more involved. You can always just do a DBA, a doing business as. A lot of times people will have this great idea of what they think is going to be exactly what it is, and they're not going to diverge from it. This is all we're going to do. And then all of a sudden, guess what? Something rolls in their lap and they're like, well, we need to expand and do this too, because this side's going to make us more money. What do I do now? Just do a DBA.
Right. So there's choices that they have. Ultimately, if you have a name picked out and something changes in that business, you have alternatives, meaning you can rename your business. You can still use the same LLC and have various names. In fact, you might have many business ideas, right, that could all fit under one LLC. And now, how does that work?
Well, pretty easy. You don't need to specify that this is my apples line and this is going to be my bananas line and this is going to be my, you can just say it's fruit. You can make it as specific as you want, and you can make it as general as you want. A lot of people will, use something that really has nothing to do with their business, which becomes quite interesting. And they use extremely general terms. They'll use their dog's name, their favorite color. I joke around with my clients all day long because I love colored stuff. So I'm like, you could call it hot pink highlighter if you want. You could call it purple sticky note. It really doesn't matter when it comes down to it, because the entity is the entity, and that is what legally separates you. It's not what it's called, it's the entity itself. And then you can do whatever you want underneath it and call it other things and market it in this way or that way. Just get it formed. That's the thing.
Right, absolutely. Get your LLC formed, and you can work on alternate names as time goes on. If what you thought at first your business was going to do specifically and it changed, it's easy to change it. We can change it for you. We can do a DBA. So I can think of, Shannon, so many meetings I've been in where we wanted to name a business. And maybe it was a division of NCH or something new that we were doing. And I have an old friend who's sort of a marketing guru. And I'll call him when I get stuck. and he always laughs if it has anything to do with naming a business. And he's like, the name has nothing to do with the business. I mean, generally speaking, you want a name for a business that maybe sort of defines what your business is, or maybe not. Maybe you have a reason to be more generic if you've got, a lot of different fruit that you're going to ultimately sell. But when it comes down to it, if you've got a specific industry that you're in, and you've got a name that you're trying to personify for your business, don't get hung up on having the perfect name, because there is no perfect name. You think of companies like Google or Yahoo, these kind of silly names, which are very difficult for people to remember, because you have to spend billions of dollars, like they have, to brand it, to basically brand it into the brains of everyone that is in America that comes across it. Well, it's very rare to have somebody that has that kind of budget. But if you have a name that works fairly well for the business and personifies what you're trying to get across, now it comes down to the marketing that goes behind that. What's the message that you're trying to share? How are you going to get people in? And ultimately, people will remember your name, as long as, like you said, it's not way too complex. And if it's too long, then it's really difficult, or just typing an email to a really long name makes life very difficult in addition. So let's talk about, are there problem names? Are there names that you want to avoid?
Well, there are certain words that are restricted, that depending on the type of industry you're in, that are prohibited by the states for using. So like you have, financial institutions. You can't say you're a bank if you're a babysitter, things of that nature. You have to get approval for certain words. So when you're thinking about the name, we do have to speak to somebody so that we can check the name and make sure that it's available. So we're following guidelines, and you don't start spending your entire marketing budget on something that you shouldn't have done that first. We got to do this. Now you just got to throw all that away and start over. And then there's other ways where you do want to avoid certain things, because if you've never said the name out loud to somebody, I've had some instances where the name sounded great in their mind, but then when we looked at it, it sounded like something inappropriate or something that was totally not the business that they were seeking to get clientele for. And that was quite an interesting conversation. I'm going to share a story.
Let's hear.
For the life of me right now, I cannot remember exactly what it was, but it was a business that was for gentlemen, and gentleman was one of the words, but it was a spa, or their goal was that they're going to do shaves and, manscaping. And the name that they had chosen, we're in Las Vegas. They're not from Las Vegas, but they were going to open it in Las Vegas. It sounded like it was one of those inappropriate places where you get massages and things of that nature. And it was definitely not a name that screamed out, "I'm going to go get a haircut, honey, and I'll be right home." Sounded like something way worse. So approaching that, and me in my position, I would have felt terrible if this had been something that I didn't mention, and then that's what they did, and that was the type of clientele that they wound up getting. So I mentioned it to them, and they were extremely grateful, and we came up with another name that was much, much, much more appropriate for what they were doing. But you get things like that where it's like, okay, I didn't know, or this is not the lingo that I've heard before. And there are certain things you want to be careful of. So you want to share that name with someone, not too many people, because you don't want them to steal your name, but you do want to bounce that off of someone. And I'm a great person to do that, because I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. That doesn't sound quite appropriate. Have you said that out loud? But those are certain pitfalls that can come up. And stressing out over having a perfect name is, I got plenty of other things in my life to stress out over. You don't need to worry about that, because pick up the phone, give us a call. Tell me about your business. I absolutely love coming up with business names, and Don't worry, I won't charge you for it. Keep it. Make all the money you want off of it. Just tell me what you want to do and we'll bounce it off of each other and there you go. And I've come up with some really fun names and names that just work. And if you leave it generalized, then you can do other things. And if you leave it something that makes you ask questions, it also helps with your marketing. You don't have to say, I am going to be a painter of the walls of the outside of your home, LLC. You could make it something like, we splat paint on it or whatever. Make it fun, make it funny. Got paint. Actually, I have one, all dirt toys. It was for this guy that he's got all kinds of landscaping and we did his LLC that held all of his dirt toys, his excavators, his backhoes, he was like, I don't know what to call it. And I'm like, well, if you're anything like my husband, why don't we just call it All Dirt Toys? And he's like, oh my gosh, I love that. And I looked it up and it was available. So All Dirt Toys LLC came into existence and that's one of my favorite ones that I've come up with. But it's fun. Just enjoy it. Don't be a stick in the mud about the business name. It's just a name.
And it's really, it can be a creative process, but as you point out, don't get caught up in it. Don't let it get in the way of moving forward. I think, as we always talk about with LLCs, this is the foundation to your business. Get the business foundation poured. Like you're building a house, pour that foundation, and then ultimately a name can change, a name can evolve. We can change the name formally at the state. We can file a DBA, as you mentioned. That's really simple, and you can use that name, or you can have, as you said, several different names for a business under one LLC for different things that you might be involved with. In the case of NCH, we have a parent company. So we have a parent name. The company's called Formation Nation. It's a cool name. I thought of it. Thank you. And it's something that is easy to remember. And NCH has a different vibe to it. It was our predecessor was Nevada Corporate Headquarters, but we simplified it down to just the acronym NCH. And people understand what we do. We don't talk much about our name. We talk about what we do. And that's what's important when you get that across. Now, you also help people verify that a name is available, because if a name exists already and it's registered in a state, you can't use that name because you've got a conflict and the state won't allow you to register that name. It's already used by someone. So what do you do when they come to you with their name and now you got to tell them, I'm really sorry, that name's taken?
Well, tell them the truth. The name's taken. We can modify it. We can go with something totally different, because a lot of times people have, well, I was thinking about this one and I was thinking about this one. Tell me both and let me check, because you might not need to fight with your wife and be sleeping on the couch for the next week because you decided this one, if that wasn't the case at all, because that one's not available and hers is, or vice versa. You can always add and associates, or you could add management, or you can add words to it. The more specific, without it being like a 10-foot long name, but the more specific and less generalized a name is, the more likely it is that we're going to be able to not have a name conflict. So if you're going to be doing business in more than one state, it's also very important for us to look and check and make sure that the name is available in each state that you're at. Otherwise, we're going to be having issues not only with the state, but then we also have to cross our fingers that we don't have an issue with the IRS. So I don't like crossing fingers. I like to make sure that we do everything right the first time. That's why you call us, and that's why we do these things. We do our due diligence so that we can guide you in the right way. So if the name is not available, don't shoot the messenger. Didn't we tell you we should do this already? You should have started up sooner, but that's not always the case. It could have been, years ago or whatever. But we can always find something, a solution that will bring together what it is that you want and what it is that you're going to accomplish. And it'll work.
You know, it's interesting. It is one of the first things that come to our attention is, what are you going to call your business? It's what we ask people. And they've been racking their brains sometimes. Sometimes they don't know. They're looking for support. But boy, if there's a conflict, it's so disruptive for them because they have racked their brains. They're so set on their name. And then they talk to Shannon, and Shannon says, well, that's a really great name, but I'm sorry, today that's not available. But we can pivot, you know. And we ran into this with NCH. NCH is taken in Nevada. Now, the original company is Nevada Corporate Headquarters. And so we have a DBA filed under NCH. There's no problem getting a DBA on a conflicted name. But I would have just pivoted if I had a problem and said NCH Services or NCH, you know, Corporate Services or NCH LLC, you know, registration, or just something else if I was set on, you know, the NCH part of it. But there's always a way to turn it, change it, add a word to avoid the conflicts that are out there. But you need to talk to someone like Shannon, who's here to help you get the name set up and help you get over what is the perfect name so that you can just get the business foundation laid and get things moving along. And I think that's the important thing here. And then also just to do the name check, you know, as you've mentioned, it goes beyond just like, for instance, if you're registering in Nevada, but you're going to operate in, let's say, California. Now all of a sudden you've got to do a name check in Nevada and you do a name check in California. And it's good if we can do that up front and make sure that we have a name that is cleared in both states. And ultimately that is, you know, a very simple process that Shannon does. She goes into these databases, she looks at it, and she'll give you some direction as far as, you know, what should I do? Okay, so we're clear in Nevada, but we have a conflict in California, so let's just change it. And with someone like Shannon supporting you, she's already done the check and she's already thinking of ideas to help you get over that the minute you see the conflict that could occur. So, you know, I think the big message for our viewers here, though, is don't get hung up on the perfect name. Get the LLC form, get it registered, you know, work with Shannon to help curate a good name for your business, not the perfect name. And the good name may turn into the perfect name as your business grows and evolves. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks for helping us kind of learn more about, you know, picking a name and people that get hung up on a name, Shannon. I know it's one of the first things that our conversations begin with as we're talking to these future business owners that are, you know, you're on the phone with day in and day out, and the level of support that you give them, you know, really makes it easy for them to take the next step. So I thank you for that.
I'm very welcome.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the program today.
Thank you.
All right, and for all of you tuning in to another edition of Wealthy and Wise, thanks for your time today, and hopefully you learn more about picking the name for your business startup, and maybe you don't need to get so hung up on the perfect name. Take care.